Hi, everyone. On behalf of the Economist Corporate Network, I would like to thank you for accessing this recording of our recent online event, Clusters of Innovation, New Technologies and Smart Economies in Asia. This event was held on the 18th of August of 2021 and was sponsored by the Hong Kong Economic and Trade Office. My name is Alfredo, and I head the Economist Corporate Network in Beijing. I was the host and moderator of the session. We decided to edit the original webinar recording to add the introduction that you are looking at right now and to re-record the question I asked during the panel. This is because we unfortunately experienced a series of connectivity issues that made it very hard for our viewers to follow the flow of the panel discussion. And this is a pity because the discussion dropped a series of very interesting and insightful perspectives on the current state of and outlook for smart cities, how advanced and digital technologies are being leveraged to improve the livability, prosperity, and sustainability of cities, how governments and companies are working together to make the city of the future a reality today, and the opportunities that this process is bringing for businesses. We even made several references to sci fi movies and talk about the metaverse. Of course, this would not have been possible without the participation of our three distinguished panelists. So let me reintroduce them. The first panelist was Mr. Alfred, Secretary for Innovation and Technology for the government of the Special Administrative Region of Hong Kong. Secretary Sid has over 30 years of experience in public administration and regularly engages the private sector to discuss cooperation and business opportunities in innovation and technology. Our second panelist was Mr. Sujae, Chief Data Officer and Director of the Big Data Division for the Seoul Metropolitan Government in South Korea. Mr. Lee oversees the collection and utilization of big data to support policymaking and administration, the establishment of big data governance, and the development of data-based services that leverage AI. And our third panelist was Dr. Inhyok, Chief Data Officer of CJ Group and CEO of CJ Olive Networks. Dr. Cha leads the development and execution of various digital transformation initiatives for CJ Group and advises government authorities on several matters related to the development of smart cities. Over the next hour or so, you will hear about their expertise and experience in the development of smart cities and clusters of innovation. But before closing, I would like to share with you the three key takeaways that I left with from our discussion. First, inclusiveness. As authorities think about how to make their cities smarter, it is critical to consider what citizens need and want. After all, making cities smarter should be about improving their livability and sustainability and about generating the necessary conditions for everyone to be prosperous. Second, cooperation. It is imperative to improve governance and employ the right structures to enable governments and companies to work together in an efficient manner and with the proper risk allocation. This will allow all parties to make the most of each other's comparative advantages. And third, opportunity. Amidst a never changing landscape due to rapid urbanization, climate change, population aging, and shocks such as the COVID-19 pandemic, there will be multiple opportunities for businesses to contribute their innovation, expertise, and emerging technologies to find new solutions and smarten up cities. With that said, I hope you like the panel discussion. Thank you. Now, to set the scene, my first question to our panelists was about their view on the key characteristics of smart cities, the value they bring in terms of livability, sustainability, and prosperity, and the role of the government and companies in their development. Secretary Sid was the first to answer.
Thank you, Alfredo. Mr. Lee, Mr. Cha, Alfredo, ladies and gentlemen. Well, good morning. It is my great honor to join this webinar to connect with our fellow I&T practitioners in Korea and share with you all the latest innovation and technology development in Hong Kong, as well as abundant opportunities that lie ahead. The global pandemic has shaken up the world and turbocharged the digitalization across the world. The wider adoption of digital tools and solutions around the globe have played a critical role in the battle against the virus and supported the rebound of the global economy under the new normal. Hong Kong is no exception. Indeed, Hong Kong's anti-epidemic work has been very much facilitated by the deployment of technology-driven measures. For instance, we developed a mobile app, Stay Home Safe, with geofencing capabilities, pairing with Bluetooth electronic wristband to help monitor the whereabouts of persons under compulsory home quarantine with due protection on personal privacy. So far, it has facilitated the monitoring of some 540,000 people under compulsory quarantine and greatly supported the successful implementation of the home quarantine arrangement in minimizing the risk of imported cases. It's true that geofencing is not any brand new technology. That said, its use on such a large scale is certainly the very first in the world. In addition, we have developed another mobile app, Live Home Safe, which helps our citizens record their visits to different venues and alert users who have potential close contact with infected venues and persons. The signature feature of this app is that users are participating in complete anonymity, and the visit record will only be stored in their own phones and will not be uploaded onto the servers, thereby safeguarding users' personal privacy. These tech applications have well demonstrated that wider adoption of INT in a smart city is just the right direction of Hong Kong long-term development. Hong Kong SL government sets a high priority in promoting the INT development in Hong Kong and has made a great efforts in supporting the use of INT on all fronts. Our chief executive set forth a clear direction to develop INT along 8 major areas when she took office in 2017. Over the last 4 years, the current term government has unprecedentedly invested over $14 billion in Hong Kong's INT development. We are very glad that our efforts have received high acclaim internationally. Hong Kong rose from the 8th to 5th in the digital competitiveness ranking as announced by the Institute for Management Development in December 2020. Moreover, the Digital Intelligence Index report jointly released by MasterCard and the Federal School at Tufts University of the United States found that Hong Kong, together with Korea and other 7 economies, are the 13 standout markets which are considered leaders in driving innovation. Undoubtedly, we are now stepping into the golden era for INT. Moreover, we must also be mindful that enhancements are still called for in Hong Kong's INT ecosystem. Apart from our continued effort in pursuing our INT policies, we have been actively stepping up our cooperation with mainland China, our motherland, especially the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau, Greater Bay Area, GBA in short. The GBA, comprising Hong Kong, Macau, and 9 affluent cities in Guangdong province, provides a vibrant consumer market of a total population of over 86 million and a combined GDP of around 1.7 trillion US dollars, which is comparable to that of Korea. Compared with other world-renowned Bay Areas, GBA has a locally lower contribution of services industry to its GDP, despite the size of its economy. This offers a multitude of possibilities for tech companies and startups from the overseas, just as Korea, to bring their innovative ideas to life. As one of the most open and economically vibrant regions in China, the GBA plays a strategic role in supporting the integration of Hong Kong into the overall development of our country. The National 14th Five-Year Plan, propagated by the Chinese central government in March, reaffirmed its unwavering support for Hong Kong, among other things, to consolidate and enhance our competitive advantage in developing into an international innovation and technology hub. To move this forward, we are pressing ahead with the development of the Hong Kong Shenzhen INT Park in the Lok Ma Chau Loop, which will be the largest ever INT platform in Hong Kong upon full development, and joining hands with Shenzhen to develop the Shenzhen-Hong Kong INT Cooperation Zone with a view to establishing one zone, 2 parks at one river, 2 banks, under the auspice of one country, 2 systems. Coupled with Hong Kong's market-oriented economy, comprehensive intellectual property rights protection, and a business-friendly environment for startups, This will certainly achieve the synergy effect of 1 + 1 greater than 2. There will be no doubt that tech companies in Korea can partner with Hong Kong to leverage these unprecedented opportunities. Being the Asia world city, Hong Kong boasts one of the most dynamic startup ecosystems in Asia. We are proud to say that in 6 years' time, the number of startups in Hong Kong has tripled to around 3,400 last year, with 11 unicorns emerged. And a quarter of the startup founders in Hong Kong has their country of origin outside Hong Kong. This international profile tells that Hong Kong not only provides prospects, but also support towards tech startups in respective of the country of origin to develop and flourish in Hong Kong. Apart from the growing size of VC investment in Hong Kong, our government has stepped up our funding investment and strengthened our support for startups. For instance, Hong Kong's 2 INT flagships, namely Hong Kong Science Park and Cyberport, launched various support and incubation program to help startups develop and scale up. We also set up a 2 billion Hong Kong dollars worth innovation and technology venture fund to attract more VC funds to co-invest in tech startups in Hong Kong. To go further, on a path to becoming a first-class international INT hub, attracting global INT talent has become increasingly important. We have recently rolled out the Global STEM Professorship Scheme to provide financial support for Hong Kong's universities in engaging internationally renowned INT scholars and their research team to participate in Hong Kong's STEM teaching and research activities. We are also running the Technology Talent Admission Scheme to provide a fast-track arrangement for eligible companies that are engaged in R&D in emerging technologies to admit tech talent from places outside Hong Kong to undertake R&D works in Hong Kong. All these initiatives will encourage cross-fertilization of local and overseas talents, contributing together to Hong Kong's INT advancement. And we, of course, welcome talent from Korea to join us through the various talent admission schemes. Ladies and gentlemen, Hong Kong remains a place filled with abundant and exciting opportunities. With our distinctive edge under the one country, two system principle, strong commitment in developing INT, our strategic position in the GBA, and vast opportunity brought by the national 14 5-year plan and GBA development, I'm confident that Hong Kong will continue to prosper as a vibrant, dynamic, and world-class smart city, and be the ideal place for tech companies and startups in Korea, which are interested in venturing into the fast-growing market in Asia to develop and excel. Before I close, may I take the opportunity to thank the Hong Kong Economic and Trade Office in Tokyo and the Economist Corporate Network for co-organizing this webinar. I sincerely welcome Korea's tech companies and startups to set up your presence in Hong Kong and use Hong Kong as your springboard to venture into the exciting GBA and mainland China market. Please do join us in this INT journey and explore the huge opportunities and good prospects here ahead. Thank you very much.
The second panelist to share his perspectives was Mr. Lee from the Seoul Metropolitan Government. I also asked him about South Korea's experience, including whether there were any difference vis-a-vis the key characteristics that Secretary Sid just mentioned about smart cities when referring to Hong Kong's experience. Here is his answer.
So if we're talking about the smart city, I would like to define what a city is. What is a city? There are uncountable definitions of a city. Among them, I want to quote this definition. Cities have been built by citizens with free will, built by buildings and technology. I want to remember this sentence. This means when we are thinking of smart cities, we should focus on human, not technology. Going back to the question means, my view of the key characteristics of the smart city. I think there are two key characteristics about smart cities. First is unrecognized technology. Think about CITS. We built the CITS of the old Seoul. CITS stands for Cooperative Intelligence Traffic System. Lots of equipment for CITS are installed all over Seoul to gather mobility data and provide CITS services. However, people do not recognize that the equipment is constantly working because it is not visible. It just works and makes data. I mean, I emphasize that unrecognized technology is very important. Second is seamless data. If you visit Seoul, you can get the weather information gathered via IoT poles. We developed this S-pole, which is IoT poles. This weather information is a little different from national weather information. It informs you of the temperature from where you are standing, whereas national weather information tells you average temperature of your area. For this service, we need perfect IT infrastructure of network, storage, software, etc. This system guarantees seamless data. Those two factors are smart part of smart city. However, I also want to emphasize the city part. I divide smart city, smart part, and city part. Smart part means in the technology, and city part means people. And I also want to emphasize the city part, which a human being has built. Cities has not been built at once and do not have one way or one point of view. Instead, it has been formed through a long time and has a life of each citizen. So there are three roles of the government should be aware of. One is listen to the words of citizens. The others is support the development of technology. The last thing is not to be in a rush to build a smart city. We should remember the word city came out in the 11th century, and the form of a city still has been changing because it is consists of humans' free will. I just want to share my opinion. Like we are just focused when we think about the smart city, we are thinking about just the technology, but we have to focus on what people want to. So that's my point. And another question: what is different from Hong Kong? Seoul from Hong Kong? Actually, I'm not sure, but from Alfred's speech, I think almost the same because as in part of the government support, because the policy are not very different, but different thing we can make is like agility, how we can do or quickly or not. Execution, that's the point, I think.
Dr. Cha from CJ Group was the third panelist to provide his views. I also asked him to leverage his experience leading the digital initiatives at CJ Group to talk about the role of companies in the development of smart cities.
There are actually a number of components that we have been planning and also executing. First, of course, is the data. So there's always the conflict between, centralized data collection and manipulation and utilization of data versus people's privacy, as well as even promoting more decentralized modes of data uses. So there's no one right way, it appears. And depending on the purposes and contexts, we as a corporation would like to contribute wherever relevant or appropriate to contribute to more collection and utilization of data. The second component, of course, is especially when we go to a particular city as a corporation to contribute, we always try to find a way to contextualize our own contributions to the particular city. For example, if we are working, when we work with the Metropolitan City of Seoul government, which we are right now, the most capable, the most centralized, the center of all economic and intellectual activities of Korea, then we would be naturally looking for ways to help the city's efforts with us to be differentiated enough, and so that whatever we do together will be will become a feature for the city that it can pride itself on. And when it has to compete with other cities of the world, other capital cities of the world, so we'll always be looking at the pursuit of excellence and pursuit of differentiation when we work with capital cities. But when we work with other more regional or non-capital cities, one of the biggest components that we want to contribute to is the education and nurturing of workforce, especially the young workforce, who we can help as an enterprise. In many cases, the regional cities, residents, especially the young residents, even the students of premier educational institutes, have relatively more limited opportunities in terms of engaging the most advanced enterprises. So when we approach regional city governments and regional city institutions, we always offer to open up our own enterprise problems and our data sets and our AI capabilities so that we can help train the young people right there where they are, so that they can have a better chance of growing up as capable people in their own lands without having to leave their own cities.
As you can see from the answers of the panelists, cooperation between government and companies is at the core of smart city development. As companies continue innovating, the application and commercialization of emerging technologies will lead to new solutions that authorities can leverage to improve urban management, make more efficient decisions, increase environmental sustainability, and, in general, improve life quality. This led me to ask Secretary Sid about the areas he thinks will generate the most opportunities for companies and investors from Hong Kong, mainland China, and other economies to participate in the development of smart cities. I also asked him about what the Hong Kong government is doing to make this happen.
I would like to go back a little bit about the purpose of smart city development. As what you and Mr. Lee just mentioned, is for the people. It must be people-centric. So I would say for the major element in a smart city, it should be sustainable and connected. The people should use different ways, mainly technology. People connect with people, people connect with the facilities, so that we can improve the quality of life. And we must make our city more sustainable and make it more effective, because most of the city, if not all, we are facing a common problem. Because of rapid urbanization, we are facing a lot of issues about the resources constraint. So we need to make it more efficient, make it more effective, I mean the city itself. So to me, technology will be the answer of most of the questions. The problem may be aging asset, aging population, whatever. And the answer is technology advancement and development. So when we want to develop a smart city, opportunity will be from the tech advancement. And the opportunity will be given to all those tech companies in 4 major areas. Well, we may put it in 4 words, A, B, C, D. A stands for artificial intelligence, B, blockchain, C, cloud computing, as well as D, data, big data. So I can see when we want to develop Hong Kong as a smart city, and we need to cooperate with each other, because I understand very well Korea is working very good in ICT. And ICT is the backbone for all the A, B, C, D, A, artificial intelligence, B, blockchain, etc. So I can expect that in the coming future, when we want to develop Hong Kong as a smart city, and then make use of Hong Kong as a gateway to go to the GBA cities. Because for the GBA cities, including Macau, Guangdong, the large cities in Guangdong, they are also facing more or less the same problem of Hong Kong. We are working really hard to make our cities smarter. And the one advantage of this city is that they are very welcoming tech solutions. So there will be a lot of opportunity that will be given to those tech companies. They are interested in the market, and see there will be a lot of opportunity available to them. So for Hong Kong, we can serve as the springboard and the gateway to enter into the market. For GBA market is talking about a population of 86 million people, and GDP is 1.7 trillion US dollar, and they are growing very fast. It's a part of the most fast growing market in the world. So there will be a lot of opportunity for those ICT company, tech company. They can enter into the market and enjoy all those development opportunities. Thank you, Alfredo.
I then turned to Mr. Lee and asked him about the key highlights of the smart city strategy of Seoul government, and to talk about innovation and data technologies and how these are being leveraged for the implementation of this strategy. I also asked him for his opinion on key areas of opportunity for companies.
We have 6 strategies, 6 S strategies for smart developing smart cities. S stands for smart, so SNet, SDAT, SData, SBrain, SMap, S-Security. So the 6S strategy is our Seoul government strategy for smart city. I will explain one by one. SNet aims to achieve digital inclusion. Inclusion. Everyone has a smartphone nowadays, but only a few can use data for all day due to communication fee. We start SNet with this thinking. What if the local government offers free Wi-Fi overall Seoul? Then all people can use data for all day. So we have built free Wi-Fi all over Seoul. So nowadays, everybody can use free Wi-Fi over Seoul. So if you visit Seoul, you can use free Wi-Fi. As that, focus on collecting IoT data of Seoul. As first step, we decided to gather environment data such as temperature, humidity, fine dust, and so on. To do this, we developed it as Pole, which has sensors of temperature, humidity, wind speed, fine dust, and communication module. It can, S-Data. Third one is S-Data. S-Data is a project to store all data of Seoul Metropolitan government in big data lake. Seoul local government consists of lots of departments, and each department produce and has their own data. If someone wants to use other department data, it is very complicated in the process. The complexity causes workers not to use data for their work. That's why we decided to store all data in one system so that everyone can use data in ease. SBrain is a project to use artificial intelligence for public service. I'll tell you 2 cases. First, we use AI technology to search a defect of drain pipes. Seoul government has to manage around 300,000 kilometer drain pipes. People using AI technology, many workers watch recorded video to find the defect. However, AI tells to workers via their smartphone when it finds defect nowadays. So workers can spend their time to do more valuable stuff. For SMF, I would like to use 2 terms, metaverse and digital twin. We are trying to complete the metaverse and digital twin on S-Map. When you want to visit Seoul, but can't come due to some reasons, you just Google S-Map and visit. You will be able to experience culture of Seoul on metaverse and see real buildings on digital twin. As a security can be described as a drill. We have a regular training program for cybersecurity, and all members of Seoul local government are part in these programs to achieve perfect security. With the 6 strategies, we are trying to build a smart city for happy life of Seoul citizens. That's our strategy, and we are working together, company, to make this real.
My next question was for Dr. Cha. I asked him about his experience in smart city development, including the areas where he is engaged in the government for this, as well as the sectors, areas, and technologies that would provide future opportunities for CJ Group.
No, I think the answer also depends on the purposes and context, and I don't think there's a simple answer. But in cases where you're starting a completely new project in a well-defined geography, where you start from a greenfield project, one way to think about is to actually have a greatly cooperative public partnership project, public-private partnership project, PPP projects. For example, I was part of the designing team for the Korean National Pilot City, the reference cities, 2, 3, 4 years ago. As a member of the Korean, the presidential office says a special committee on smart cities. So we selected, a number of us actually selected 2 sites, the Beijing and West Busan, as well as their basic governance structures. At the time, what we thought was that whatever smart city, a new greenfield city, to have a better chance to become sustainable and to sustainably excel at attracting investment and talent, and also excel as a continued demonstration of continuous improvement, we need to actually put in the appropriate governance structures, was what we thought. So the eventual outcome was that we ended up in proposing, and that's actually being actualized right now, in proposing a government and public and private participated special purpose corporation structures, SPCs, where the private side actually would have the majority votes. But there's also very strong public sector participation by design, so that and also there's a longer term contracts where there's a chance for continuous and very long-term chance for economic gains without increasing the likelihood of very speculative and very short-term activities. So only so that and also the policies of the structure would be known very, very clearly, so that only corporations who can actually have the stomach and willingness and to contribute, and at the same time have a longer term economic interests realized by the structure, could participate. So I think the governance structure is very important. Public-private partnerships are very important in greenfield projects. For brownfield projects or existing city renovation projects, things become a little bit more complicated. There are more stakeholders but I think I agree with Mr. Lee that in those cases you really even more importantly, you need to start with the people who are already there. I don't think it's going to be anybody's interest to displace people who are already living in certain areas and cities. Gentrification is always a problem for almost any city, and so the purposes, the objectives have to be that the government and the corporations would have to work together to find ways to strengthen the community that exists already, you can augment it, perhaps you can expand it, but whatever you do, unless you have a very stated purpose of strengthening the communities that already exist and the people there, I don't think that whatever we build can be termed as a smart city. You might be, in terms of the question about, the technologies, I think that the times really changed so fast these days. I mean, just a year ago, when if you asked me the same question, I would say without hesitation that AI, machine learning in AI, and data analytics, and bar none. Now, because you in order for the corporations to gain and also data, gain any economic output from either greenfield or existing cities, you need to have ways to either cut costs and then draw your revenues from that, a share of that cost reduction, or you have to find ways to monetize new things. So either way, you need to depend on data and analytics and AI, the optimization of existing things. But I think the COVID-19 and the accelerated pace of remote and virtual interactions on a massive scale, I think that has changed a lot too. So to answer it today, I think I'll have to say that the metaverse the technologies related to the metaverse segment are even more important too. Now we are literally limited in terms of our freedom, in terms of actual physical interactions. So any service that you used to be very, very naturally just expect to be able to receive physically now have to be delivered in virtually in many cases. And I think we are still, as a society, we are still grasping with this reality. And I think it's going to be a reality that we'll have to live with for a long time and adjust and evolve with. And I also agree with Mr. Montufar-Helu's, concerns that, especially the younger generation, when they're not even allowed to go out to play and meet their friends offline, they'll find a way. They'll still find a way, and the worry that they'll escape to their own lands, that they will shut the older generations off from. So I think that would be a very, very unfortunate, phenomenon. So I think that the adults actually have their jobs actually cut out for them. The existing generations, people in power, people in with responsibilities, we now also have to worry about and find ways to include and invite and make whatever we make for them, the younger people, enjoyable enough, safe enough, and otherwise they'll run off to their own lands and we won't be able to see them again. That's the worry. So I think it's a real worry. So now the cities that we have physically have all kinds of problems, but the cities that is being built right now virtually will have their own problems too. And how the actual physical people will divide their time and attention between the two, I think it's going to be one of the most important questions of the not only smart cities, but cities and societies as a whole. Don't have answers, but I think the technology is important, but how to design and implement and operate the technology with what kind of purposes and what kind of worries too, I think it's going to be very important.
As a preamble to my next question to Secretary Sid, I mentioned that the panel discussion we were having was not only about smart cities, but also about innovation clusters. I said this because one of the most important clusters worldwide is the Greater Bay Area, not only because of its size, but also because of its potential to drive prosperity in the region. So I asked Secretary Sid about what Hong Kong is doing to leverage its expertise in smart city development and innovation technologies to increase the connectivity and improve living conditions across the Greater Bay Area and the opportunities that this is bringing for businesses. Here is what he said.
Hong Kong is always a gateway to the mainland China. Now we have a vast opportunity available in the GBA city. Hong Kong, we are moving ahead as a smart city and we are gaining experience to make much of our problem coming from aging population, aging asset, we solved it through technology application. So all such experience in Hong Kong can serve as a good reference for the GBA, other GBA cities to learn from it and apply the technology to improve our quality of life of our community together. So for the smart city development, we see it as an opportunity to improve the quality of life in Hong Kong, as well as a business opportunity for our partner, like those from Korea and other part of the world, to come to Hong Kong and serve with us the expertise and use Hong Kong as a testing one or maybe a testing site to apply the technology and have the successful case to be expanded to other GBA cities. Because well, for the GBA city, the population and the market size itself are much bigger than Hong Kong. And also it's a fast-growing economy, and so there's a vast opportunity. But the problem here is that Hong Kong can still be the most international city in the GBA area. And also we have, under the one country, two system, we have very comprehensive international protection arrangement, so that while the tech company in the outside world can come to Hong Kong and start their business and connect well themselves to the GBA city with the Hong Kong as the foundation. Hong Kong can serve the agent and as the bridge between the outside world and the GBA and the mainland China. That is what we have been doing for a long time. And so we are doing the same way as again. But one more dimension is that because Hong Kong, while we are moving ahead as a smart city, the experience that, well, those tech companies apply in Hong Kong can serve as a good reference for them to expand their business to mainland, the GBA market. That is the role of Hong Kong as the gateway, as the springboard for those tech companies to go to GBA market.
I then asked Dr. Cha to talk about CJ Group's experience helping develop clusters of innovation in South Korea. Secretary Sid also offers some perspectives on public-private cooperation.
Well, the CJ Group have various initiatives to contribute our share towards fostering and the innovation clusters, innovation circles, ecosystem. For example, we have like many other groups. For example, we have our own corporate venture capital. We also have accelerator operations that help a number of innovation clusters in Korea, and so on. Specific to the company that I'm leading as a CEO, CJ Olive Networks, one of the things that we did was that, so before, because we were not sure that the best way to actually monetize any efforts, and also we didn't think that that approaching any government with very short-term, economic interest in mind would work. So what we did was that that when we approached a few regional cities, we tried to utilize what we had already set aside for corporate social value, contributions. So we already were working on remote education programs. We already operated some of those, but we tailored them to the COVID-19 situation. And we also renewed and tailored them to the new corporate vision and corporate mission, which included purposes for contributing to make a better world. And in our company, the definition of better world includes inclusiveness and reduction of social divides and gaps, regional gaps, gender gaps, and many other gaps. So clearly, the lack of educational infrastructures, relative lack of infrastructures and facilities and capital and human resources clearly affected many aspects of these regional cities' abilities to train their own people and corporations and entrepreneurs and so on. So we offered and we actually designed and operated our programs, CSV programs, to help in ways that we can there are young people with remote AI education and software education, and we just offered them to their schools and their students. And we made the efforts. We already had evidence, and we then approached the city governments. So initially, we worked with the school districts first. And we still continue to do that. We still continue to expand them too. We've proposed, for example, a number of months ago, proposed a scaled approach from our own experience to the central government as part of the Digital New Deal initiative. I don't know whether that'll be accepted by the government, central government or not. But so, as I said before, because education of young people is a very important and critical problem for these regional cities, especially for skills that future-proof their young people for the new age, like AI and software and so on. Whatever corporations can do to help with those, I think will be important. So, and then there will be infrastructures. There will be data derivations, data analytics for the city operations. And making data available to the citizens too. I think I would like to point out that probably one of the definitions of a smart city would have to include whether the citizens themselves will have greater access to a lot of data, not only from city governments, but also from the businesses, as well as from their own communities and so on. So how can we make the data available? And not only just in raw data forms, but also with the abilities for the citizens individually to be able to utilize the data on their own terms for themselves, by themselves. So when we approach the governments, we always try to actually offer such capabilities. For example, CJ Group has this national membership application and service that have 27 million people as its members in Korea. So it could be used as a platform for the regional governments, as an adjunct platform for them to utilize, because the citizens who are on that platform from those cities could utilize the data that we amass from that region, and then we might be able to give back those data to the citizens, and with the abilities for the people on their own handsets, for example, to make decisions for themselves in optimal ways. So this is not yet done. But these are part of our offerings always and conversations with the city governments. Those things will need to, some certain levels of investments from both sides. But I think making data available more and more, and also making the abilities and capacities to use the data on an individual basis, so that individual citizens can make smarter decisions, can be better informed and make smarter and better informed decisions, would have to be a part of the smart city initiatives, and we're trying to make that happen too.
I totally agree with Dr. Charles' remarks, because when we start the journey to make a city be a smart city, we need to have two major dimensions that we need to look at. One is the engagement, public engagement. So, because whenever we move ahead to change a city to a smart city, we are talking about the change management, and the major element for a successful change management, to me, it is about the engagement, to let the people understand, to make our plan more inclusive, to allow the people to be engaged and participating actively, to provide them with the data and information why we are moving our city to a smart city, what's the purpose for it. So it's very important for us to have a good public engagement to allow the people to participate. And the second major element to me is the cooperation, because the government cannot do all the things by ourselves. So we need to have strong cooperation and support from the community, in particular those private sector and those market major stakeholders like CJ organizations. So I think for the model, which Dr. Choi just mentioned, I fully support it. And I see the need to have more cooperation with the private sector, so that the government, when we move ahead with public engagement and public support and the cooperation with the private market, it can make our journey to smart city more easily to be successful. For the government, we need to have two main roles as well. One is the promoter and the other is facilitator. We need to promote the engagement of the whole community in the journey. So and promote the infrastructure and nurturing of talent so that the community can be more ready to support the smart city development. And the second is the role of the facilitator. We have to, for example, to make the data more open and make our system or the legislation more flexible so that we can support the journey of smart city development. It's the role of the government, the new role of the government.
My last question to the panel was about the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic in the development of smart cities. It is undeniable that the pandemic has impacted significantly the way we live and do business by accelerating the digitalization of the economy. It has also impacted the way we think about cities. Living in close proximity increases the risk of virus spread. Infrastructure needs to be more resilient, more spacious, and more user-friendly. And economic development needs to be greener and more sustainable. Against this backdrop, what is the outlook for smart city development? And what are some of the lessons learned from dealing with the disruption brought by the COVID-19 pandemic for the development of smart cities going forward? This is what our panelists responded.
Yeah, COVID-19 is certainly a crisis to the whole world. Hong Kong is no exception. But to me, while we are trying to using different measures to minimize the impact of the COVID-19 to our daily life, maybe we can also see it as an opportunity, I would say, to promote the application of more technology in our daily life to make it more resilient to all such crises. Because to me, we can reasonably expect that while COVID-19 will go and then another infectious disease will come maybe in the coming future, sooner or later. So we need to prepare ourselves well. And COVID-19, is maybe we can treat it as an opportunity for us to reflect and see how we can make good use of technology to combat such situation, to make our community more resilient. For Hong Kong, so when we are supporting our community to fight against the virus, we also make use of this opportunity to have some new initiative to promote our community to apply more effectively the technology available. For example, we have one program called a Distant Business Program. It is a financial supporting scheme for the community to make use of the financial incentive given by the government for the business sector to make better use of technology in doing their business. And the response is very good. Because we see from the impact of COVID-19, we need to have some changes. We need to make a difference. So we make use of this opportunity. The government make use of this opportunity to promote and facilitate the community to be more resilient, to more readily applying the technology available in the market to improve the competitiveness.
제가 생각하는 건 코로나19 이후에 우리가 좀 이제 그 기회를 가졌다고 생각을 합니다. 어떤 기회냐면은 이제 빠르게 그 디지털 전환을 할 수 있는 기회를 가졌다고 생각을 합니다. 그래서 기존의 그 관성에 의해서 하지 못했던 변화를 이제는 좀 시도를 할 수가 있을 거라고 생각을 하고요. 그래서 예를 들면은 저희가 그 예전에는 이제 데이터 개방을 한다거나 분석을 할 때 이런 것에 왜 비용이 필요하냐 이러한 그 데이터에 대한 그 인식이 무료라는 인식을 많이 갖고 있었는데 이제는 이러한 데이터 분석을 통한 효과를 우리가 경험을 하면서 이거에 대한 데이터에 대한 가치를 사람들이 인식을 했고 이것에 대한 투자가 더 필요하다라는 것들을 공공 분야에서도 충분히 인식을 하게 됐다고 생각을 합니다. 네, 그리고 또 하나 이제 스마트 시티가 어떻게 될 것이냐라는 생각에는 제가 점성술사는 아니어서 확실하게 그래서 할 수는 없겠지만 제가 생각하는 제가 확실하게 얘기할 수 있는 거는 그 스마트 시티는 우리가 생각하는 대로 갈 것이다라고 얘기할 수 있을 것 같습니다. 그래서 우리가 예전에 생각을 해보면 우리가 비행기를 생각을 했었고, 우주선을 생각을 했었고, 해저터널을 생각했었고, 이런 것들이 이제는 우리가 이용을 하는 것이 됐잖아요. 이제 지금 우리가 영화 속에서 그렸던 자율주행 자동차라든지 플라잉카라든지 아니면 로봇펫 이런 것들이 이제 그리고 휴먼, AI 휴먼 이런 것들이 이제 우리가 만나게 될 거라고 생각을 합니다. 그래서 아까 그 알프레도가 그 언급한 메타버스 관련 영화도 있지만 이러한 미래 세계를 그리는 거는 저희들의 이러한 짧은 이야기보다는 그 영화를 보시는 게 좀 좋을 것 같아서 한 두 가지 영화를 좀 추천을 드리고 싶은데 하나는 스티븐 스필버그의 AI라는 영화가 있고요. 또 하나는 한국 감독 이용주 감독님의 서복이라는 영화가 있습니다. 네. 그래서 이 두 영화를 보면은 미래가 어떻게 그려지는지 좀 그 여러분들이 상상을 할 수가 있을 것 같고요. 한 가지 재밌는 점은 스티븐 스필버그 감독님의 AI 영화라는 거는 2000년대 초반에 나왔는데 거기에는 지금 우리가 생각하는 AI에 관련된 사회가 잘 그려져 있어요. 윤리 문제도 그려져 있고 그 성에 대한 이슈도 관련돼 있고 그런데 한 가지 재밌는 거는 거기에는 자율주행 자동차가 안 나옵니다. 그래서 AI에 자율주행 자동차가 안 나온다는 게 되게 이제 관심적인 부분이었고요. 여기서 제가 말씀드리고 싶은 거는 그렇게 우리가 상상한 대로 우리가 그 스마트 시티를 만들어갈 수 있지 않을까 생각을 합니다. 감사합니다.
I wish I could actually be optimistic, but I think we're living in a world with great contingencies these days. Excessively disruptive phenomena that are happening. A number of very profoundly disruptive phenomena, all coming almost at the same time. A number of them all together. The emergence of AI, the COVID and other pandemics, the climate change, and the growing gaps, and the and I think the worry is that nobody wants the world to go back like 70 years ago or 100 years ago. Well, wars are more rampant, and conflicts are much more rampant, and the entire world was much more violent, by the way. And if you go back 200, 300, 400, 1,000 years ago, humans are much more violent, and we really suffered from massive, uncertainties and security fears all the time. That's historically the case for most people. And I think with this much change that's happening, I think the dangers are real. I think that whatever we do, the corporations, government leaders, and I think we have to be wary of these things. That unless we take good care, very good care, and cooperate together on very profound levels, the challenge may be too much for us to handle as societies. And I think that's and so I think whatever we do, I think the smart cities will have to first establish commonly agreeable and committable purposes. I think that's going to be very important. Whether it's about sustainability, climate responsiveness, or ensuring reduction of gaps and also maximizing still freedom while maintaining order also, whatever it is. So I think the work's really cut out for the designers and executioners and even dreamers and so on, and even technologists with the wildest dreams. I think I think we have to work together to make sure that what we have been able to achieve to establish the most peaceful and most prosperous era that we've ever had can be maintained and even more expanded in the future rather than going backwards. So I think that's what I wanted to just say.
Human mankind is quite vulnerable, so we need to work closely together before we can really survive and be sustainable under all those crises. We need to cooperate. All mankind must be cooperate with each other to make ourselves more stronger, more resilient for the uncertainty in the future. Yes, that is my remark. Yeah, thank you.
I would like to thank you again for having accessed this recording of our recent online event, Clusters of Innovation, New Technologies and Smart Economies in Asia. I hope to see you next time. Thank you.